Let's go Broncos! The Denver Broncos just made a move that could completely change the future of this franchise, and most people around the NFL still do not realize how big this really is. Behind the scenes, something special is being built in Denver, and once you connect all the dots, you will understand why Broncos country should be more excited than ever. But before we continue, hit the like button if you truly believe the Broncos are heading back to the top of the NFL, and comment right now, "Go Broncos!" The future is orange and blue. Now let's get into why this news matters so much. The NFL is built around one thing: stability. The organizations that consistently win are the organizations that have leadership everyone trusts. And right now, the Broncos are building something that looks sustainable for the long term. George Paton is not just surviving in Denver. He is dominating. Even with massive challenges over the last few years, this franchise has stayed competitive, and now it feels like everything is finally coming together at the perfect time. Think about what this front office has had to navigate. Huge salary cap complications, roster turnover, massive expectations from Broncos country, and constant pressure to rebuild this team into a contender again. Most franchises completely collapse under situations like that. Instead, Denver kept moving forward. That is not luck. That comes from elite management. And here is what makes this even crazier. Around the league, other organizations wanted George Paton badly. There were rumors that teams were preparing moves hoping they could somehow convince him to leave Denver. That tells you everything you need to know about how respected he has become around the NFL. The Broncos did not just keep a good general manager. They kept one of the most desired executives in football. When you really examine the roster construction, it becomes obvious why fans should feel confident about the future. George Paton has attacked team building from every possible angle. Trades, free agency, the draft, player extensions, salary cap structure, long-term development, he has touched every single area of this organization. And unlike many general managers who are only strong in one category, Paton has shown he can operate at a high level across the board. Look at the draft success alone. Patrick Surtain II becoming a defensive player of the year level player immediately changed the identity of this defense. Then you look deeper into later rounds and it becomes even more impressive. Quinn Meinerz developing into an elite force. Nick Bonitto turning into one of the most dangerous pass rushers in football. Jonathan Cooper becoming a major contributor after being selected late. These are the types of moves that separate average franchises from championship organizations. And what stands out most is how Denver keeps finding impact players without always relying on premium draft positions. That matters because successful teams rarely pick near the top of the draft consistently. The Broncos are building like a team expecting to compete every season, not like a team depending on lottery picks to survive. Then you move into free agency, and the story gets even stronger. Players are choosing Denver because they believe in what is being built here. That is one of the biggest signs of a healthy organization. Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw reportedly had opportunities elsewhere, yet Denver became the destination. Evan Ingram choosing the Broncos over division rivals says a lot too. Veterans want to be part of this culture. They see stability. They see leadership. They see direction. And maybe the most underrated part of George Paton's work is contract management. So many teams destroy themselves financially by waiting too long to extend their core players. Denver has avoided that problem repeatedly. The Broncos have managed to keep elite-level talent on deals that still allow flexibility moving forward. That creates a roster that can stay competitive instead of peaking for one season and collapsing immediately afterward. Another thing Broncos fans should pay attention to is how respected the coaching structure has become. Around the league, organizations continue showing interest in Denver assistants and staff members. That only happens when the entire operation is viewed as successful. Great organizations develop coaches the same way they develop players. And George Paton deserves major credit for helping build that environment. Even beyond football, the Broncos are becoming one of the most respected brands in professional sports again. New facilities, long-term stadium discussions, organizational growth, player development systems, everything points toward a franchise preparing for sustained success over the next decade. This does not feel temporary anymore. This feels like a foundation being built carefully piece by piece. And perhaps the biggest thing of all is this: through every difficult moment, every controversy, every pressure-filled situation, the Broncos front office has stayed composed. That matters more than people realize. The best organizations are not the ones that avoid problems entirely. They are the ones that know how to respond when problems appear. Denver has shown that ability repeatedly. Now Broncos country has a leadership structure locked in for years ahead. A talented roster. A franchise quarterback developing. strong coaching, stability in the front office, and one of the most passionate fan bases in sports ready to believe again. The craziest part about all of this is that the Broncos are not operating like a team hoping to become relevant someday. They are operating like a franchise that fully expects to dominate for years. And when you start connecting all the dots, you understand why keeping George Paton was probably one of the most important moves this organization could have made. Because think about where this franchise was not very long ago. Broncos country was frustrated, exhausted, and wondering if the team would ever truly recover. There were questions everywhere. Questions about leadership. Questions about roster construction. Questions about direction. And now, suddenly the Broncos are being talked about as one of the most stable organizations in football. That turnaround does not happen accidentally. What stands out to me the most is how George Paton never panicked during difficult moments. Most general managers in the NFL start making desperate moves when pressure rises. They throw money around recklessly. They mortgage the future. They create chaos trying to save themselves. But Paton stayed patient and calculated. Every move felt connected to a larger vision. And now we are finally seeing the payoff. The Broncos have one of the deepest rosters they have had in years. The defense has become feared again. The offense is growing into something dangerous. Young talent is developing all across the roster. And maybe the most exciting thing for Broncos fans is that this does not feel like the ceiling yet. It still feels like the beginning. You can also see how much confidence ownership has in this entire operation. The Walton Penner ownership group clearly believes this front office has the ability to bring championships back to Denver. And ownership matters more than fans sometimes realize. When ownership trusts leadership, it creates alignment across the entire organization. Facilities improve. Resources improve. Recruitment improves. Everything becomes easier. That is why Denver suddenly feels attractive again to players, coaches, and executives around the league. People want to be part of stable organizations. They want to join teams that have a real plan. And the Broncos are starting to look exactly like that type of franchise. Another major reason fans should feel optimistic is because the Broncos are no longer building only for the present. They are building layers. Elite organizations always think ahead. They prepare extensions before contracts become problems. They identify future stars before the rest of the league catches on. They maintain depth so injuries do not completely derail a season. Denver is beginning to operate with that exact mindset. And honestly, one of the biggest signs that things are changing is the respect the Broncos are getting again nationally. Around the NFL, people are paying attention to Denver differently now. Coaches are being targeted for promotions elsewhere. Players are publicly buying into the culture. Analysts are beginning to recognize how complete this roster is becoming. Those are all signs of a franchise climbing back into the elite tier. Then you add the excitement around Bo Nix continuing to develop, and suddenly Broncos country has something it has wanted for years, long-term hope, real hope.